Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we're back with another episode of Way of the Underhive. This is a series that's dedicated to brand new players to campaigns of Necromunda, and this series will help you answer questions about starting gang rosters, starting gang lists, the different rule sets, as well as different alliances. And this series we'll be talking about the different alliances you can make with the Merchants Guild, and on this episode specifically, we'll be focusing on the Corpse Guild, also known as Mercator Pallidus. So for those of you guys who are interested in striking up a guild alliance with the Corpse Guild, we'll be talking about the positive and negative impact that this alliance will have on campaign play. We'll also talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of the Corpse Guild as well, talk about the fighters that make up the corpse harvesting party, at the same time talk about the drawbacks, benefits, and our final conclusions on the Corpse Guild. So that being said, let's get this video on a roll. So first of all, let's go and talk about the positive impact on actually making a guild alliance when it comes to your campaigns. First of all, I have a rule that's called a band apart, and pretty much what ends up happening is that all the benefits of taking a guild alliance is basically there, and there are hardly any negatives of actually taking extra fighters into your different scenarios. Also, the members that make up the entourages that come with the different guild alliances, their bodyguards, they actually do a really good job of keeping their leader, their guild alliance, protected from harm. They also got some really good fighters, some good rules as well. And the best thing about taking up a guild alliance is that they do not actually take up any numbers whenever you use them for scenarios. So for example, if you have like a scenario that only lets you take 10 crew members onto the scenario, your guild alliance guys can be used in that scenario and not count towards that 10, which makes it really awesome. Really helps you balance out numbers, also helps you bring out some experienced fighters, better equipment without impacting your crew size. So those are some of the positive impacts of a campaign play when using a guild alliance. So now that we're done talking about the positives, let's go and talk about the negative impacts making a guild alliance will have on your campaign play. First of all, you cannot be an outlaw gang and be able to ally yourself with the merchant guilds. Unfortunately, that's one of the rules that they have because, you know, these guys are merchants, so they're supposed to be above board, or at least try to give the appearance that they're above board anyways. So because if you're an outlaw gang, you will not be able to make any guild alliances. However, though, if you are an outlaw gang, that's not a problem because you can still make criminal alliances, and we'll talk about that later on in this series as well. Now, another problem that you also have too is that you can easily lose your alliance with the guild based on a couple of factors. You have guard duties that you must pull on certain scenarios, tithes that you might have to pay sometimes to the guild, and in some cases there are some serious drawbacks that if you don't want those drawbacks, like a test the alliance and also break it. Now, guard duty especially is kind of a concern because it kind of limits the type of scenarios you can play, and plus, you know, tithes come to your resources, same thing with like money, equipment, that kind of thing, and the drawbacks could actually have some pretty serious things like, you know, actually kill some of your members of your gang. So it just kind of depends. What you have to do is basically look at the positives and negatives of each of the guilds and figure out whether the risk benefit analysis and basically whether the risk pays off in terms of rewards. So the Corpse Guild is a good mixture of what I like to call tactical as well as strategic assets. Pretty much tactical assets are game mechanics that either affect individuals in the battlefield or actual combat on the battlefield. These are things that are taking place on the tabletop. Meanwhile, strategic assets are game mechanics that impact a gang during the course of a campaign, and the Corpse Guild is a good mixture of both. The Corpse Guild is an excellent tactical asset in my opinion. The reason why is because the fighter it provides with its entourage on the battlefield. The Corpse Harvesting Party is a very savage, close combat oriented list, and so that's one of the major benefits of taking it, and that's the real tactical advantage of this gang, of this alliance. Now at the same time, the Corpse Guild is also a good strategic asset because it helps you kill enemy critically injured fighters a lot easier, and at the same time it can also help your own gang with their lasting injuries, so it could have some pretty significant impact on your gameplay over the course of a campaign. It might make your fighters be able to recover easier and not to worry about things too much. So those are some of the tactical as well as strategic assets of the Corpse Guild. Now let's go and talk about the benefits as well as drawbacks. So first of all, let's go and talk about the benefits of making an alliance with the Corpse Guild. First of all, you have a special rule called Extra Corpse Starch Rations. And what this allows you to do is allows you to re-roll your lasting injury results on the lasting injury table. Now, however, if the second roll is worse than the first roll though, the second one still stands. So this is kind of like a cost risk benefit analysis on this one as well, okay? So if you have a fighter who's grievously injured, because the second result could be worse than being stuck in recovery, my suggestion to you is not to actually use this roll for grievously injured fighters, because if you roll and make a bad roll anyways, they're going to go back to recovery, and then they're also crippled now. So it's just best just to write it out and let them skip a scenario. It's kind of a pain when they're stuck in recovery, but you know, them's the breaks at this point. This would actually make a really good roll for things like if somebody gets a critical injury roll, for example, or if they you know, get a memorable death, or they do get a serious crippling injury. This can kind of save them out. So you got to kind of weigh the risk of getting a worse roll, and then apply accordingly. And the thing about when we talk about critically injured fighters, if you only have one critical injured fighter that's in your gang, no matter what's going to happen with that guy, if it's just the one dude, he automatically is going to die. And the reason why is because that's one of the drawbacks of actually having this guild alliance. I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit more in detail. Now, if you should have 2 or more critically injured fighters, you could still probably use the extra corpse ration special for those guys, but just know going in that if you ever get a critically injured fighter, you only get one. That person's automatically going to die. Okay, and that's because of a drawback for that. We'll talk about that a little bit here in a second. Which brings us to this one's still moving. Now, this special rule impacts all critically injured fighters on both sides. Okay, so this is for your opponent as well as you. Now, if your opponent actually has a couple, if you roll a d6, on a 6, that fighter automatically dies, and you get to keep all that fighter's equipment, weapons, equipment. Which could be kind of cool to really mess with your enemy, especially if your enemy has some really good weapons equipment as well. But like I said before, this also counts for your own fighters as well. So no matter what, and when we get to the drawback here, we'll talk about this a little bit more in detail. But if you have at least one, that one critically injured fighter is going to die automatically, no matter what you do. So that's one of the problems that you have. Now, of course, the third benefit, of course, you get the corpse harvesting party entourage. But we'll talk about those guys a little bit more in detail when we get the actual fighters. For now, though, let's go and talk about the drawbacks. Now, the drawback for this alliance is called Meat for the Grinders, and this is what we were talking about earlier with that critical injured fighter that you have in your own gang. And as the rule states, it says one of your randomly selected critically injured fighters automatically dies. So because of that, if you have 2 or more, you know, one of them's going to automatically die, but the rest of them you could probably roll the extra corpse starch rations to have them survive. But if you only have one, they're going to die. That's the way it is. Now, of course, you could refuse this rule and actually go to a rogue dock shop and do a medical escort mission and save that fighter. But if you do that, that automatically tests the alliance. You could actually break the alliance with these guys as well. So that's the thing you got to keep in mind as well. So if you expect to get a lot of critical injuries, or if you know that's something that kind of tends to haunt your gangs, might suggest you to back off of that as well. But at the same time, though, it's not that bad of a drawback, I mean, because there's some really serious ones that are even worse, but all things considered, it's actually kind of nice. So with the drawbacks over with, as well as the benefits, let's go ahead and talk about the corpse harvesting party. So let's go ahead and talk about the corpse harvesting party. This is the entourage the alliance sends to you if you need help fighting your enemies, okay? And so because it's actually a pretty substantial entourage, it's really designed for close combat. They got some really good strength, really good toughness, perfect for close combat. They're also a perfect way to help kind of balance out a shooting heavy gang who needs combat supports. So for example, if you're a Vansar or a Delag gang, you may be really good at shooting, but when it comes to the close combat part, you might not do so well. In that case, if you play one of those 2 gangs, having a corpse harvesting party can really help you out, because oddly enough, it actually benefits you the most, because then you have a more well-balanced gang in terms of close combat as well as shooting as well. So let's go ahead and talk about the individual fighters that make up the corpse harvesting party. So first of all, let's go ahead and talk about the Pale Consort, which is basically the leader of the little entourage, or known as a guild procurator is what they're basically known as. So for their stats, the Pale Consort has a movement of 4 inches, 5+ weapon skill, 4+ ballistic skill. This character's also got 3 strength and 3 toughness. It's got 1 wound, 4+ initiative, 1 attack, 7 leadership, 8 cool, 7 willpower, as well as 6 intelligence. Now for the equipment on the Pale Consort, the Pale Consort is packing a last pistol, fighting knife, as well as mesh armor. The fighter also has a meta skull as well as a respirator, which basically makes her one of the most resilient members of the guild, because she does have that med skull to help patch her up. She also got that respirator to help her out as well. In terms of combat, though, she's really not going to be doing much of anything. She's more kind of like there just to kind of stick around and endure, so that way you can keep these fighters in your group. Now, the nice thing about the Pale Consort, though, she does have Overseer skill, which makes it really nice because she could use it to do double activations with her members of her entourage, especially the corpse grinders. We'll talk about those guys here in a little bit. At the same time, she does have the Fearsome skill, which should keep her protected from being charged in most cases. And the reason why is because you basically want to use the Pale Consort as leadership support. And basically what she's going to be doing is using that Overseer skill and spamming it for the different corpse grinders that work with within the entourage she has, okay? And that's pretty much what you want to use her for, because those corpse grinders are actually quite deadly. We'll talk about those guys here in a little bit. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the Bone Scrivener. So up next we have the Bone Scrivener. This is what's called the Guild Factotum. This is like the second ranking guy that they have. Let's go and talk about his stats real quick. So he has a movement allowance of 4 inches. He's got a weapon skill of 5+, a ballistic skill of 4+. He's got 3 strength, 3 toughness, 1 wound, 5 initiative. He's got 1 leadership, 1 attack. He's got 7 leadership, 8 cool, 8 willpower, as well as 7 intelligence. So when it comes to the Bone Scrivener for his equipment, he does have a gun skull, which is kind of nice, as well as a cult icon for group activations, and he has a respirator as well, which is nothing really special about this guy. And when you look at the way that this guy has his stats, he's actually not that really good. In fact, he's actually one of the worst fighters you could possibly get. But that's not why you're taking the Bone Scrivener. Well, the Bone Scrivener basically comes into play is with his leadership support, especially when you can do those larger group activations. He can automatically do a group activation of 2, which is also going to be really, really nice. So having that ability to do more additional group activations is what you're keeping the Bone Scrivener around. And the second reason why you like the Bone Scrivener is because basically you could use this character as a human shield to either protect your Pale Consort, which I highly suggest you do, because if the leader of the entourage gets taken out, your guild alliance basically ends, your fighters go away. So by keeping the Bone Scrivener near the Pale Consort, you could actually protect that character and just let this guy die, because there's no harm if this guy dies. Or if you're thinking about using him as a human shield for your Corpse Grinder, you could also use him as well, which is perfectly fine, because that's what he's basically designed to do. He's designed to die and take wounds. Now, the real reason why you want to take the Corpse Harvesting Party is for the Corpse Grinders, and you get 2 of these guys in the entourage. Let's go and talk about them real quick. So you get 2 bodyguards. They have a movement allowance of 4 inches. They have a 3+ weapon skill, 5+ ballistic skill. They have a 4 strength, 3 toughness, 2 wounds apiece. They also have 4 initiative, 2 attacks. They also have 8+ for leadership, 7+ for cool, 8+ for willpower, as well as 8+ for intelligence. Now, when it comes to the Corpse Grinders are armed with chain glaives. They also got flak armor, giving a little bit of additional protection, as well as crushing blow skills. So because of that, it's a good combination to use with these fighters as well. They can pretty much one-shot kill most opponents in close combat, especially if you're talking about other gang members from opposing gangs. They might have a little bit harder time with going against brutes like ambots and things, but for the most part though, they're really good. They can stand toe-to-toe with them as well, which is actually kind of nice. And the fact that you get 2 of them is what really makes this really awesome as well. And like I said before, what you want to do is you want to partner up one of your Pale Consort with one of these Corpse Grinders, because by using that Overseer ability, you can basically do a double set of activations for your Corpse Grinder. So for example, getting off double charges or double sets of combat are no joke when it comes to these guys, alright? So you could actually have one Corpse Grinder charge an opponent, one-shot that guy, and kill him in close combat, and because he has the Overseer's ability on him, he could then do exactly the same thing to another one, and just bum rush forward and take out guys. I've actually seen this tactic used quite often in my own games of Necromunda, so because of that, that's why you want to get this alliance, is because of the Corpse Grinders. These guys are really deadly. So in conclusion, the Corpse Guild is actually a very, very, very high tiered alliance. Okay, now I don't like using tier systems when it comes to ranking things in games, but it helps players, especially novice players, get a better understanding of how things work. So that's why I would rank these guys as a high tier list. In my opinion, they pretty much tied in first place with the Slavers Guild for having one of the most effective and efficient guild alliances in the game system. And like I said, just like the Slavers Guild, the Corpse Guild is an excellent close combat alliance group. So because of they also provide some really good injury buffs for your gang, which could really help out, especially if you get some pretty serious injuries that you don't like. Now, there are some drawbacks, like I said before, when it comes to the critical injury, but at the same time, though, it could help you out, though, because let's face it, as long as you're okay with no one dying or letting your guys die sometimes, the Corpse Grinders are actually pretty good way to go. They actually give you some really good resilient close combat fighters. You can use guys as human shields to protect your gang. They can help out from most injuries, so I say go ahead and go for it. Just make sure that you don't have anybody critically injured, because these guys will probably eat them alive if they get the chance. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's good to do for this one. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to our channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.